Joining us again on the Fox News Rundown is Bill Hemmer. You can watch him 9 to 11 o'clock weekday mornings, America's Newsroom with Dana Perino. Also, when it comes to elections, Bill will be there election night at the map, touching the screen, going around the country with all the different voting results. And today we're going to focus on North Carolina, one of the toss-up battleground states in the Fox Power rankings. First of all, good to have you back.
Thank you,
for joining
Dave.
us.
Good to be with you.
So North Carolina is one of these states where you can look at one poll and see Trump by 2 or 3 or 1, and then another poll that has the exact opposite. It is as close as it can get.
Yeah, it sure is. It appears to be that way. North Carolina historically has been somewhat elusive for Democrats, not for Barack Obama. But, you know, he won 2 terms, but only won North Carolina once, which is very interesting. And they've been trying to, get over the hump.
Right, and Trump won it twice, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, yes, correct on that. And closer in 2020 than in 2016. And it appears, just based on a lot of research, Charlotte is Mecklenburg County, most populated, one of the most populated counties in the whole state. And they haven't been able to close the deal in Mecklenburg County.
Okay.
And if they can, they're going to have a real good shot at winning the state. Now, there are a lot of variables out there, and we can get into this, whether or not Helene affects what's happening in Western North Carolina or what the early indications are saying on the early vote.
But you're talking about an urban area, and that has been traditionally in all of these states, right, that are battleground states. Democrats need to do well in those populated cities.
Yeah, what I find interesting about Mecklenburg is that it's not just urban, it's also suburban. And the counties that surround it also, they've always been reliably Republican, but we don't know how they're going to vote with Trump going after a third term. I will say, as of this conversation, in North Carolina, the in-person vote, which is something I look at every day, sort of kind of obsessed with it, actually.
This is the early voting stuff.
Well, there's a lot of really smart people you can follow on X, and they're professors, and they're political scientists, they're mathematicians, statisticians, and you can follow how they're evaluating this. But I just want to get this number out.
Okay.
As of our conversation right now, there is just shy of 1 million people who have voted in person. And different states will put this information out in different ways. In Georgia, for example, they will break it down according to race, white and then black.
Okay.
And that's how they do it. North Carolina doesn't get that specific. But as of now, you've got an advance vote of well over 1 million people in the state of North Carolina who have voted.
And when you talked about black and white, the former president seems to be gaining momentum with minority voters. He had the event with Latinos in Miami. A poll that came out this week has an 11-point lead over Vice President Harris. Now, obviously, Harris has a big lead among black voters, but particularly among black men, she seems to be lagging what Joe Biden did in 2016 and 20.
The only thing I would say about that, it appears that you're right, that your statement is accurate. But we're not going to know. And as we sit
You're skeptical.
Well, we're 2 weeks away, and you don't want to jump the gun on anything, in my view. And for 6 months, and we've been watching these polls, Dave, and all the really smart people say, yeah, this is where the spread is right now, but over the next 6 months, these numbers close and everybody comes home. Well, maybe they will. But if they don't, it's going to be a really good opportunity for Trump to pick up voters in a state like North Carolina that in most elections that we've observed over the past 24 years hasn't necessarily gone that way. So that's a bit of the drama that's held within the numbers.
You've talked about suburban voters like in Mecklenburg County. There has been a large gender gap in the polling pretty much nationwide. The support's there for men for former President Trump, but like a mirror, it's just the same for women for Vice President Harris. Is this as much of a gap as you've seen?
It could be. I'm definitely as big as I've seen in the polling, but whether or not it turns out that way, I don't know. If it does, yes. Women are on one side and men are on the other. But since we're talking about North Carolina, I think it's good for listeners to understand that, when you're looking at that map, it's a beautiful state, right? You got the coastline on the east and you got the mountains in the west. But in between there, you've got Charlotte at the bottom, a little bit of a triangle to get this in your head. due north of there is a county called Guilford, and that's Greensboro. And then east of there is Raleigh, and that's Wake County. And they kind of make a bit of a triangle of sorts. One of the things that I'm most curious about, and similar to Georgia, but for the sake of this conversation, North Carolina, how have the demographics in North Carolina changed since 2020? We got an indication of that a little bit in 2022, but not at the presidential level. And I don't know if there is a hidden factor in there that we have not seen since the census of 2020.
Is this all COVID related?
No, I think it is, yes. Going back to 2020, people moving out of Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, going to a lower tax state, a state with better weather.
Right.
Maybe better job opportunities.
Or you take your job with you and work remotely.
You could do that. Or maybe younger people have decided to move there. We know that's the case in Metro Atlanta. That was apparent in 2020. Mm-hmm. How similar is it in a state like North Carolina? I just don't know what that intangible is now.
It is interesting because you go through all these different battleground states. Do you have a harder time gauging North Carolina or any of the other ones, or are they all equally difficult?
Well, I'm a nerd. I've been really nerding out on the early votes.
Yeah, well, you have the whole map, and you have to touch the screen and everything.
Here's what I'm thinking as of today, and all this could change. I said this to our team 2 days ago. I said, is there a chance that we actually know who's going to win as we go into the morning of Election Day? Because early voting is so significant. So there's some data points out there. And I'm not saying this is true. This is not empirical. It's just something to think about. Most observers in the state of Georgia believe if you want to win a statewide vote as a Democrat, you have to hit 30% of the vote of African Americans. And so we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think 9 days of early voting in Georgia. Let me just consult my... So you've had in-person vote, which I'm really big on, by the way. The ballots requested and the ballots sent. The numbers are out there. Okay, fine. But, the breakdown's difficult to know. But in-person voting tells me a lot. Mm-hmm. And they've had 1.3 million as of Tuesday morning. That's a ton of votes out there. And so because Georgia reports based on race, which is not always the case, you can see where the black vote is. And as of yesterday, there's a thing called Souls of the Polls. Mm-hmm. On a Sunday, black churches, the message is we go to church and then we go vote.
Right, and Vice President Harris went to churches in Georgia.
That's right, on Sunday. And I think she'll be back again this coming Sunday. But the margin did not change precipitously. I think it was around 27.2 African-American and jumped to like 27.5 based on a professor in Louisiana named John Kuvalin who watches this stuff very carefully. So, maybe there's some tea leaves that we can read. I think the same is true for this discussion regarding North Carolina. You're going to see this in-person vote and where it comes from. You might be able to devise some clues based on that. Yeah. And like your question is very good about Western North Carolina. We're going to know whether or not the early in-person vote, the EIV,
I didn't know that,
is the equivalent of what was in 2020. And so there's going to be some clues in there, is just my point.
Yeah, and you talk about...
But no conclusions, and I want to emphasize this. Look, Republicans have shown a tendency already to be more enthusiastic to vote than Democrats have. However, we do not know today whether or not that enthusiastic early vote still would have happened eventually or on Election Day.
And you talk about mail-in voting. It's easier with early in-person voting. You cast your ballot, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. The mail-in, you might in North Carolina. You have to attest. You have to have. There's the rules on that. You have to have some certification on your vote, and it's not just send it in the mail. Mm-hmm. What I mean is, you could more easily challenge a mailed-in ballot. That's the difference. Why early in-person voting might not be as easily challenged as a mail-in vote. Say, what if you didn't? What if you didn't do the? What if there's something on the ballot you didn't do perfectly?
Right. It's a good point. I don't know how it shakes out, but
in North Carolina, they have a voter ID law. Mm-hmm. If you vote by mail, you have to get the signatures of 2 witnesses and a copy of their identification in the ballot envelope.
It's pretty strict.
So again, we don't know what that would mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
It seems like it could be open to more
We'll
challenge.
see. Listen, North Carolina is going to close in the 7:00 Eastern Time hour.
Okay.
And if they count fast, we might have some early clues.
Do you
just
think-
like Georgia. Look, Georgia's been under the gun for 4 years.
Okay.
They've got an excellent website that was redone by the Secretary of State.
This is Georgia.
Yeah, I would encourage your listeners to go to it and check it out if you want to nerd out on this stuff. And you know the pressure Georgia was under in 2020 by all sides, and it's still there. And
Democrats made a big deal of the voter law that came after that and called it like a Jim Crow 2.0. And they said that they were trying to suppress the vote in that state. Have you heard much about that since?
not yet.
You think it's lurking?
I think the changes they made so far have proven to be a better system than they had before. And look at the numbers.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I wanted to show you this. All right, so
Yes.
we
So
in the Fox Power
So
rankings
you're handing me a slip of paper.
have
Okay, go ahead.
Harris with 226 projected electoral votes.
Yes,
Trump
sir.
with 219, 93 up for grabs in these 7 battleground
Yep.
states. You can take 2 different scenarios and make it 269, 269, and have a tied electoral college.
Gotcha. Okay, my question here is: you have Trump, Pennsylvania 19. Is that Georgia?
Georgia
North
or.
Carolina?
In
Georgia
one-
and or. Got it. Okay.
Not and or.
Georgia or.
In
and,
this
and for
one
Harris,
scenario,
it's either okay.
They split Georgia and North
Brilliant.
Carolina,
Brilliant.
right? And then Pennsylvania goes to Trump, Michigan goes to Trump, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, and one of the other Georgia,
Very
North
good.
Carolina.
I love it. Where'd you get
tie.
this?
I was just looking at the map. And you just do the map out.
That's really
And
good.
the other scenario is there.
Do you have a copy of this? Because I want
Anywhere.
to take it down
Okay.
because
You
we're
take
going
this
to
with
do
you.
rehearsals
Yeah,
today.
take this with you.
I want to check your math.
Yeah.
The question for you is that congressional district in Nebraska, that one electoral vote
Right.
accounted for in here?
In this projection, in both of the scenarios of a tie, it's given to Harris, the Nebraska district.
Okay.
So
that's Omaha.
Right. That's not
Trends
considered
blue.
right now a battleground.
That's one of these blue dots that we
Right.
mentioned. Yeah.
Right. But if it were to shift to Trump unexpectedly, that could even also lead to a scenario of a tie.
Yes.
Because you can make the math out 270, Harris
Very good.
260.
I'm keeping. I
telling
want
you,
to run it through the
do you-
ringer. Okay.
I mean, nobody's prepared for that, Bill.
yeah, you're right. You're not wrong about that.
So North Carolina, if you had to go, who needs it more?
I think the easiest way to understand it for Harris is to sweep the blue wall. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, game over. I think for Trump, the easiest way to understand it is Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania.
He wins those, it's over.
That's right.
And so North Carolina,
That's right.
so you think he needs it more?
For Trump to lose North Carolina, he's got to go shopping out west, which he can do. You know, Arizona's got 11 electoral votes, Nevada has 6, or he goes up into that blue wall and steals one of those states. And in all likelihood, if it's not Pennsylvania, he's won Michigan before.
Yeah, but Michigan's one less than North Carolina.
Yeah, you can't take it off the table.
You need all the votes you can get.
Right. Wisconsin, historically, you know, with the exception of 2008, Wisconsin has been a very close state. Back in 2000, we were banging our heads against the wall in Tallahassee, Florida, trying to figure out whether it was Bush or Gore.
Yeah.
Wisconsin was decided by like 0.2 percentage points. And then in 2004, between Kerry and Bush, no one even paid attention to it. It was 0.4 percentage points.
Wow.
Now, that's remarkable stuff. You know?
Ohio was the big one in that race, 04.
118,000 votes. They gave it to Bush that night and gave him a second term. Yeah.
So we'll see. North Carolina, certainly one of the states up for grabs.
Thank
for
you for
Trump.
my souvenir, my memento. Thank you for
You want
my
me to sign it?
No, thank you for my homework.